This is your weekly real estate update for the greater Portland, Maine area. These are closed sales in the last 7 days, median numbers. Days on market went up to 7 days on market this past week, but definitely still a very hot, quick market in the greater Portland area. The list to sale ratio still at 100%. So I didn't get my prediction of it going over another week. The median sold price was flat at $499,000. The 30-year average fixed interest rate went down just slightly to 6.84%. So we're 4 weeks in a row with very little change there. And the US inflation, of course, at 2.3%, which is down year over year. This week, we have a little bit of heavy stuff to discuss in terms of the US economy. I'll give you a little kind of recap in case you're not aware. The two things we have to talk about is, you know, chats about World War III and chats about civil war in the United States. So the first one we're going to talk about is the No King protests and rallies. So No Kings, Trump, the Trump administration has been having ICE raids for quite a while now. And in Los Angeles, in the last couple of weeks, there have been protests, some nonviolent, some violent, saying, hey, we think these ICE raids are above and beyond what you should be able to do as the president, and we're not okay with you doing it. This expanded over the last week, particularly on Saturday, into the rest of the United States. Major cities had hundreds and hundreds of protests with hundreds of thousands of people showing up to share that opinion. No kings. We have an elected official who has a certain job, and you're doing more than it. That's the opinion of the protesters, right? The other thing that happened this past week was Israel attacked Iran. Specifically, they attacked some nuclear development sites, and they also assassinated some military leaders in Iran. Iran responded very quickly, and they said that this is not the only response they're going to have, bombing back into Israel. There's a defense dome over Israel, which kind of covers a very specific area. So those attacks were not super successful, but they did make it clear that they're serious. They had a lot of missiles from both planes and drones, and a lot of people feel like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen, right? As I said, the words World War III were thrown over with the Israel attack on Iran, and over here, with all of these protests around the United States, the words civil war were thrown around. So, what does this mean for you? Um, it's not fun. So, the market reacted as you might expect. The Dow Jones dropped tremendously. Nasdaq dropped. The S&P 500 all dropped off. The stock markets do not like uncertainty. They do not like to not know what's going to happen next. If you're an investor, could be a great time to buy the dip. But what does it mean for you in terms of real estate? What does it mean for you maybe personally? My opinion is that first and foremost, I don't think we're going to see rate cuts because this just creates more uncertainty around what is going to happen in the US economy, what is going to happen with the supply chain. So I think that if there was potentially going to be a rate cut at the next voting period, it is even less likely now because of these new issues. In addition to that, I think that we've been moving towards, in Maine specifically, this really nice spring market. It arrived a little bit later. It wasn't as explosive as we hoped, but we have been seeing an increase in activity and inventory. Things like this are not good for that. When people feel unsure, when people hear big words like World War III and Civil War, they feel paralyzed and they don't make big moves, oftentimes, like buying and selling real estate. So I would expect, depending on how fast these things resolve, and I can see both of them dragging out pretty tremendously here, I would expect to see a slowdown in the market. I would expect to see people withdraw and say, I just don't know if I can do something this big right now. I don't know what's happening in the world. I don't know what's happening in my country. So make sure that you are being very locally informed. What is happening with inventory where you live? What is happening with pricing where you live? Is there anything you should be considering in terms of migration? Some of this unrest is creating a mentality, and some of these raids are creating a mentality of change in areas. Does that affect your area? Will it affect how you could buy or sell in your area? So, as always, make sure you're talking to a local professional who understands these things and other things and how they could affect you, and make the best decision for you and what affects your part of the world, your part of the United States right now. Hope that was helpful. Have an awesome weekend. As always, reach out if you have questions.